Alright, you guys, today we're going to work on our Day of the Dead mask. And before you get started on today's assignment, you need to have your design completely finished. So I had my mask paper folded in half. I did all of my designs, and then I held it up to a window so that the light would shine through, and I flipped it over and I transferred the design to the other side. Okay, so it's important to have that part ready to go. Next thing I did was I rolled out my slab for my mask, and the mask that I rolled out, or that slab that I rolled out, is a little bit thicker than my pencil this time. So if you can kind of see that here on the edge, this is a mechanical pencil, so kind of figure out the size that would be. It's a little bit thicker than what we've done so far, and the reason for that is because it has to kind of be able to support the weight of everything that we're going to put on top of it. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is just place my template right on top, and I already went around and cut off all of my excess clay, so I can kind of just touch that up real quick. And one thing I'm going to do right away is I'm going to make a note of where my holes are going to be. I want these holes, I'm going to punch them in my clay so I can actually hang this up on my wall. Okay, so I just kind of did a little indent, and I don't know that you can see it in the video, but I can see it here of where my holes are. And now I'm just going to kind of drill a hole in there with my pin tool. And then you can follow that up with the end of your paintbrush and just carefully push that hole through your mask. Make sure it's nice and open and there's no clay in there. Okay, and I'll clean that up a little bit more when it dries. One thing that is really important to know about a slab of clay, since we want this to stay flat, if you take a slab of clay and flip it all over the place and twist it and bend it, when it comes out of the kiln, it's going to be all twisted and bent again. So definitely try to keep it really flat. Once you have it kind of figured out, rolled out, keep that as flat as you possibly can. Okay, I'm just smoothing off the background real quick. So kind of going through with my sponge, making sure my edges are nice and refined and smooth. I don't want to have any sharp edges. So I want everything to look good. After that dries, the next thing is going to be to place your template over your mask. And I'm going to use my pencil and just start working on my design. So I want to press this into my design. I'm not going to do the whole thing on this video, but I'm going to press my design into my clay, and I'll just do enough so that you can kind of get an idea of how this looks. And the reason I'm doing this is because that's going to give me a layout. I'll be able to tell exactly where all of these design features are going to go on my mask. I'm going to put a circle here for my eyes real quick. Another circle over here. And then I'll go ahead and pull it off. So again, you might not be able to see it really well in the video, but you should be able to see the basic indents of where my pencil went. Okay, so that, I would do the whole thing, but for the sake of time, I'll just kind of set that aside. Next thing I'm going to do is start working on my layers. So remember, you have to have 3 layers for this particular project. So again, I'm going to use my template and bring it over here. I've got some clay already pre-rolled. This is a little bit thinner, and in fact, it's still just a little bit thick. So I'm going to thin it out just a little bit more. Even when we're adding all these layers, we still don't want something to be so thick that it's going to blow up in the kiln. Okay, so thin your clay out. This isn't quite half the thickness of my mask, but it's definitely much thinner. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I am going to map out my eye, and I think I'm going to go ahead and cut it with these kind of marigold leaves around the eye. I'm going to cut it as one piece, because then I can actually build up on top of that. So now I can see my design. I'm going to cut around it real quick. And as you're at home, of course, you're going to go slower and make yours look just a little bit better. So there's my shape. I would take my sponge and get all the crumbs off of that shape, make it nice and clean. I've got a paintbrush here also for detail work. So if I have little chunks stuck in the grooves, I want to clean that out and just make sure that everything looks as smooth as possible. Okay, so what I can do now is I could just place that there. I would make my second one and make sure that I have them kind of aligned in the correct way. I know my bigger petals go on the top. And then the next thing I would do would be score, slip, and seal that onto my background. I like a little bit more dimension to mine. So this, because I think this is a flower petal, I'm gonna press these just a little bit thinner. They seem kind of thick and flat to me, and I want this to have more of a flower feel. So going around the edge of my flower, I kind of pressed it thinner and curved the petals up a little bit more, and already to me that looks way more interesting. Okay, so that's one thing that you could consider doing. Now once I score and slip on there, that's the second layer. Okay, and we're going for 3 layers. So I've got layer 2 on my mask right now. And like I said, I would need 3 layers, and I want that in multiple spots. I don't just want one area that has that 3rd layer. So the other thing I have on my eye design is this diamond kind of shape in the center. So that could be my 3rd layer that I would add up. So I can, again, trace that using my template. Just trace my shape onto a piece of clay. And same thing, I would just kind of thin that out a little bit. I think it's a little bit bulky when they're just cut from a thick slab. So I'm kind of pinching that shape just a little bit smaller and adding, I don't know, just a little bit more personality to it. Smoothing it off with a little bit of water, and then that's gonna go right into the center of my eye. The other thing I think I would do here is add a line back in. So I have a line around the edge. Not sure exactly what tool I want to use here. Looks like my paintbrush makes a nice round line. Okay, so I can carve into that, and then I can score, slip, and seal my diamond shape onto the top of that eye. Okay, so now in that one area, I've got my background, which is layer 1, the back of my eye, the top of my eye. So I've got 3 layers in my eye. Okay, and it has this really nice kind of dimensional feeling to it with curving up the flower petals. Okay, so that's the basic process of how to create your mask. You're using your template to get your shape on here first, so that goes on the whole thing. And then again, using your template for each individual piece, especially when you want it to be symmetrical. So for me, the next thing I would probably work on is the nose after I do both of my eyes. So, you know, carving that shape onto my slab of clay that I have here. And then within my nose, I have lots of design elements. So I need to figure out which layers I'm gonna create. You know, so do I wanna have the inside of my nostril? Do I want this to be the level of the background? And then this is a layer 2 and this is a layer 3. So every area of your project should have multiple layers on it. Okay, so that's what I would do next, is work on my nose, cutting those layers out and adding them in on my nose area. The one caution I want to give you guys is thinking about weight. So if you do a lot of weight here, here, and here, like 3 completely separate areas, when you try to pick up your mask, when it starts to firm up, it's really likely that it's gonna crack and split right in these middle sections because you have so much weight on the ends, maybe a little bit in the middle, but it just isn't gonna dry very evenly. So I would really encourage you guys to create a design that holds your pieces together. So around the edge of my design, I have this piece of clay that I'm gonna build up on this edge. And that for me actually is gonna work like a link. So it's gonna hold my top piece all the way down here into my bottom piece together. And I can just add that as a coil that goes around the edge. But that's gonna just tie everything together, make sure it holds on there so that I don't get cracks and breaks down the middle of my mask. All right, so I'm gonna continue working. This is the video 1 for how to get started on your mask. I'll put another video in after I get more work done and show you just kind of some finishing tips for Wednesday and Thursday.